My dudes, what's going on? You want to know how the 3D printer works so you're not horribly confused? Well, this is the video for it. Shout out to the YouTube members and Twitch subs who keep this dream a reality. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's start off with what the 3D printer is and how to unlock it. The 3D printer is a World 3 mechanic that can be unlocked from construction. Its main purpose is to print base materials that drop from a mob. The base material is shown as the first item on their loot table. It can even print tons of resources, from logs to bugs to even fish and more. These materials print every hour. Every time you build another level to the 3D printer from construction, you unlock another character to use the printer. Multi-kill does affect how many base materials you get from monsters, so this applies to your samples as well. Although you cannot print rare mob resources, those have to be farmed manually, unfortunately. Now, in order to take samples, you must progress through Haagen-Dazs questline at the start of World 3 up to a point of getting the star talent known as printer sampling. This can be equipped to your hotbar and used when you are fighting a monster or harvesting a resource. The sample will be a percentage of your overall AFK per hour. You will usually start off pretty small, with about 20% sample size, but you can get this up to a maximum size of 90%. Now let's show you how to get every source of sample size, because this should be your first priority. We have stamps coming in with Stample Stamp, which drops in World 3 from certain mobs like Sheepier or Cheezor. We have Ample Stample Stamp, which increases printer sample size, and you can get this from Trash Island for 40 trash. We have the Maestro Family Bonus, which gives us sample size the more he levels up. In the arcade, the shop rotation has sample size and at 2% if you buy all of it. The Alchemy Sample It Bubble is available in the Yellow Cauldron. In the Post Office Utilitarian Capsule at 400 boxes will give you 3.33% sample size. The vial in Alchemy known as Snow Slurry is the Snowman's base material drop, which will reward you with sample size. The special talent Printer Sampling at 100 at 100 will give you 18% sample size. The achievement known as Saharian Skull will give you 1% sample size, and one of the biggest ones is Prayer, known as the Royal Sampler. At level 1, it will give you 15% printer sample size, but minus 30% class XP. This class XP loss is additive though, not multiplicative. For instance, if you have 80% XP reduction and 10 times XP, the final bonus would be 9.2 times XP. Recommend to stop leveling it at about 8 to 11 and running it at all times. But don't worry, you'll eventually max this for tome score, so it's okay if you overlevel it. At the Merit Shop in World 3, you get plus 5% printer sample size at 10 out of 10. The Salt Lick, which is the first upgrade for Red Ox salts, gives you 10% sample size as max, and there's other stuff like the Squire Talent for super samples, which will give you sample size based on what level it is. Now then, we have 90% sample size, which is great, but what is our next task? Well, we want to get our alchemy bubbles up to a point where you can reach 300% multi-resource gain. Although it doesn't have to do with 3D printer, it's still a really good thing. Also, with the Caverns Below update, you can get a bonus that increases the max cap to 600%, but we won't worry about that right now. Just focus on getting 300% multi-resource gain from Bug Squared, Wyoming Blood, Multi-Logo, and Sploosh Sploosh. You can also get these from star signs and stamps, but we're just worrying about the alchemy bubbles for now, because this is a massive gain and huge help for those 3D prints. 3D prints can be super casual as you like or super sweaty. The choice is yours, but we're here to be lazy and realistically only use prints that we need, because less time printing is more time we make in those sweet games, because we're filthy casuals. Let's give you a list of what I use for each character's printing. Divine Knight prints all ore and make sure each one has a copper ore print. Blood Berserker prints all fish but also has a copper ore print. All mages print all logs, with all of them having at least one oak log sample. Siegebreaker prints all bugs, and Beastmaster doesn't really benefit from anything that is resources, so we use them as a refinery printer. So you'll need mob resources like green mushrooms, gigafrogs, sandy pots, sheepy, Thermeister, eyeballs. These are all the resources needed for each salt of your refinery. After that, you can do whatever other mob materials you may need. And lastly, the Voidwalker, same as Beastmaster, but he can also be your vial farmer. If you don't know, VMan can do the VMan speedrun and take samples within the speedrun. Here's what you do. You kill as many bosses on Nightmare, because they count as 3 boss kills, to get the mob respawn buff from them. The talent is called Bossing Bane. Then go to the mob you want to take a sample from. Press Void Radius because it will give you a huge multi-kill buff. And then you take the sample. The amount of mob materials is so gross that it'll help you get your level 13 vials. Now you might be wondering why you want oak logs and copper ore. Later on, you'll be using these to farm out atoms for your atom collider, but this is a different video. Also, this will help for your tome score. Now obviously there's multiple ways to do this, but this is way to be super lazy. It doesn't require too much thought process and not miss out on anything. Another thing I want to touch base on is printer output percent and what this means. Later on, you'll get this bonus from certain sources like Divine Knight, the Sailing Artifact, or even things like Skill Mastery from the Rift. This just adds on top of your already 3D printed samples. Don't worry, you don't need to reprint. Next is the gem shop is massive for this. If you haven't seen my gem shop priority list, it should show up right about here. You want 3D crystal printer because this makes it so you can print 2 things at a time per character. Also, sample slots will be something that'll be helpful later, but it's more quality of life than anything. To maximize your printer games, make sure your lab is lit up for the ×2 3D printer bonus for the people uploaded to the lab. If you can, run the Hair God, which will give you a ×3 printer bonus as well. With both of them together, you get a ×6 printer bonus. The easiest way is if you have Doot, which gives you every god, or a far enough to the hole to equip multiple gods. And to know what the multiplier of 3D print you're printing at, if the numbers are gold, that means you have 2 times prints. If the numbers are blue, that means you have ×3 prints. And if your numbers are purple, that means you have ×6 prints. And lastly, something to boost up your resource gain just a little bit more. In the Maestro tab, Printer Goes Burr is an ability that you can use where you can print a set amount of printer samples instantly and have a % chance to have no cooldown. This can give you an insane amount of resources in a very short amount of time. But there you go, my dudes, a beginner guide to 3D printing. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments section if I missed anything. But anyways, my dudes, I gotta get back to the guide grind. Stay tuned for the next IdleOn video. Stay safe, happy grinding, and peace out.
What's going on? Bizzle.